Welcome to the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. Dive into market insights, winning strategies, and the stories shaping today's commercial real estate landscape. Let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 10 of the JMJ Commercial Realty Podcast. I am Adam Schertzer, an advisor at JMJ Commercial Realty, and I'm joined by the owner and broker of JMJ Commercial Realty, Josh Cedia. How you doing, Josh?
I am wonderful. How are you today?
Excellent. I am fantastic. So we're going to jump right into episode 10 here. But first, let's just let the listeners or viewers know if you haven't watched or listened to the previous episodes, kind of what we are about. And do you mind if I take it today?
I would love for you to do that today. Yeah,
All
that'd
right.
be great.
Normally you do. So JMJ Commercial Realty is a brokerage firm located in Massachusetts, and we specialize in leasing and sales of commercial real estate. So whether it's helping tenants find new spaces to lease or landlords looking for tenants to occupy their property, helping buyers, whether it be, a business looking for space for themselves or to expand, or maybe an investor looking to add to their commercial real estate portfolio, and also looking to help with businesses or owners that own commercial property and they're looking to sell. So kind of all facets of that. And we work with all different types of commercial real estate, from office spaces to industrial to retail to medical to restaurants to trampoline parks to all different aspects of that. Uh, does that cover it there?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. So that's us. That's what we do. So with that, let's jump into episode 10. And the topic today is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable in commercial real estate. So what does that mean there? That's kind of a tongue twister.
Yeah, being getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So, um, it can mean a lot of different things. For me, I'm just thinking right now, being on doing this podcast, even though it's been 10 episodes, but it's not something that I really had in mind earlier, but I know you had suggested that it would be a fun thing to do and we should try it. And, trying to get out of your comfort zone. It could be some of the things I know we talked about in an early episode, cold calling. And, sometimes I think you're still, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're still, a little more on the uncomfortable side. And I've done it so long that I'm very comfortable with cold calling. But just different things that, whether it's in just in life or in commercial real estate, it's talking about, you know, things that can make you uncomfortable, but hopefully move you forward to bigger and better things.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I know for myself, coming from a job where I didn't have to make any cold calls, and I was never had a telemarketing position or anything like that. It was always, the customers would come to me and then I would work with them. So coming into this job, having to find your own leads, build your own network, all that stuff that starting off from scratch in any type of sales position can be hard for some people, especially if they're not comfortable with it. And I think you really do need to have to become comfortable with some of those things in order to grow your business and get to the next level.
Yeah. Even just being in this type of work that we do for just day to day of, it's 100% commission. And, I know we both came from, corporate positions where you'd have the salary and, kind of, different benefits that would come along with that, to where you could be in, as a broker or agent, where you just, months could go by or weeks could go by and you don't necessarily have a paycheck coming in. So being uncomfortable on that side of things, I mean, that's an example right there. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and in the 2 years that I've done this, there's definitely been those times where um yeah, even recently thinking, when is my next deal going to close? When am I going to get paid again? And and being comfortable with those uncomfortable situations financially, which is hard for, I think, for anyone. Um,
Mhm.
Whether you have a job and you're not sure if, how long the job's going to last, or in a commission type position where, you know, you don't know when your next sale is going to happen. So like what
Right.
are some strategies, I guess, if someone's listening now, be like, oh, I'd love to do this work. I'd love to get into sales, but I don't know if I can be uncomfortable with that, or how do you get comfortable with being uncomfortable?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is that repetition for whatever it is. Let's say we're talking about um, networking, right? And you might be haven't been to a networking event in the past or a chamber of commerce event or something where you have professionals that are around. You could be very uncomfortable the first time, the second time, the fifth time. But if you keep going and you're there to network with other people and to introduce yourself and your services, hopefully, if you consistently put it into place, a plan into place, it will start to get easier, just like anything else. So, um, I mean, I look at that for cold calling, or I look at that for um, other aspects, but I think it's that consistency and also having belief in yourself that over time it's going to get easier. Um,
Hmm.
I'm trying to use that approach just for this podcast. One of these days I'll get more comfortable. I'm
Are,
not there yet.
are you going to look back at episode one after we've done a bunch of these and be like, man, look how uncomfortable I was, or maybe you'll look back and be like, oh, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or
Yeah, at
yeah.
some point I'll look back at episode one. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know it's true thinking about even when I started doing this with networking, it was really uncomfortable going out, to a networking event. Maybe there are 30, 40, 50, 100 people there, and I didn't know anyone, and I've always considered myself a fairly shy person, so it's hard to, insert yourself into those conversations and those situations, especially when you're starting out too, that it's like, what am I going to talk about? Are they get, they're like, oh, this person doesn't know what he's doing. Um, and, so then you start spiraling and to be like, oh, I'm nervous. I don't want to do this. I don't want to, um, but it's definitely true. With the more times you do it, I think of it as like exposure therapy,
Mhm.
you know, um, or just also just the practicing, whether it's practicing an instrument. No one's going to be great right when they pick up you know uh, a guitar, but over time, if you just keep putting in the effort, eventually it pays off. So same with this. It's you could think of it as practicing and just exposure to these new situations that you've never done before. Um, and it's still, like you said, it might take, it's not going to be the first time that you go. It might take 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 30 times before you really start feeling comfortable. I know for me, it definitely took a while. And but now it's like I don't even think twice about these things. It's like none of those thoughts pop into my head about like I'm not going to know anyone. What am I going to talk about? I'm going to be nervous. My hands are going to be sweaty, right? Um, so I've gotten to that point where it's just like, this is just part of the job. Here I go. Let's do it. And I actually look forward to it now,
Mhm.
which is, complete change of where I was 2 years ago.
It's awesome. Yeah, and I think about like, when let's say we're helping someone to put a leasing proposal together or to purchase a property. The first time that you're doing it, it's really challenging. You're trying to figure out, okay, what dates do I put in? How do I look at the numbers? How do I think about structuring an offer? But you do that over and over and over again, and you get feedback and you try and improve, and over time it becomes a little bit easier. I mean, I know you said but over 2 years that you've been doing this job, but like when you put a leasing proposal together, do you still feel really uncomfortable? Or at this point, you're starting to you get the mechanics down, and you kind of know generally
Oh,
how to structure
definitely.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but I still think back, it wasn't that long ago in the beginning where it's like, what do I put in this area? How do I frame this? Where do I put this? What do I do? And working on those with you and seeing your examples. But yeah, now I've gotten to the point where it's like, I can do it in my sleep. I can be dreaming and then just one hand's over here, just writing on, I'm like there, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, look at that. But it, yeah, it's like that part of the job. I think any job, it's like that with, you're going to come in not knowing, whether different tasks or how things are done, um, and um, and I think, I was going to add too that I think we probably mentioned this in some of the previous episodes, but like, finding a really good mentor that can take you through these things and also challenge you. I know that for us, you challenged me a lot with cold calling, with networking, um, and that's been really helpful. But you've also been there to help me when I don't know what I'm doing and not being afraid to ask questions either. And then it takes time to learn these things, and whether it be the terminology or how to fill out certain forms or things like that. Um, and I know that I've like challenged you as well. Like here we are doing this podcast that you probably never thought we'd be doing,
Mhm.
2 years ago. Um, and getting yourself in front of the camera and putting more stuff out on social media, doing a newsletter. That was a
Yeah,
big
I
one
was
too.
not comfortable doing a newsletter with thousands of people in the database and sending out emails to them about new listings and
Hmm.
but it's been great, and it's something that we do consistently every month. And I don't know how long it's been now, probably a year and a half or so.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, when I press that button to send it out, I think to myself, it's going out to, thousands of people, and I want to make sure it's, as perfect as, as good as it can be. So,
Right. Right.
um, but it doesn't have to be perfect all the time for things. In some cases, you want to try and have it perfect, but generally, you can adjust over time. So.
Hmm.
I mean, you
Right.
gave the example of guitar, right? I love playing guitar, as you know, and it's
Mhm.
been more than 25 years that I've played. And having a mentor, being able to look, I mean, I love that, like, whether it's YouTube or other instructors you can turn to, being able to, get better over time, learn more on the instrument, and refine things over time and get more and more comfortable.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. Um, so yeah, I think just, the message to put out to people is that it's not going to happen overnight. You know, no one, no matter, even if you've gone to school for this, I think that's another thing too with this job is so much of it is just like on the job experience.
Hmm.
I'm sure you can go out there and get your certifications and take your tests and your exams and all that and be prepared as much as possible. But yeah, I think once you get into it, it's going to take that time, um, with working through whatever you're uncomfortable with. Um, I think one thing that I've kind of looked at now, and I think you've helped with this as well, is looking at some of these discomforts as an opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, thinking to myself, I was even recently an example. I was at a networking event, and it was sort of wrapping up. I was heading out. I was in that like uncomfortable position of like, do I keep talking to people? Do I leave? You know, and I could have easily just walked out the door. I was literally like 10 feet from the door. And there was someone, actually the one of the managers, I think, at the place we were at, wanted to talk to me about something. So I was like, all right, I could have followed up with him later. I had his card, but I'm like, all right, I'm there right now. Let me at least, let me talk to him now. Um, and so I went and chatted with him. And then at that same time, someone else came over and they saw the vest I was wearing that had our logo on it. And they said, when I was wrapping up with this guy, they're like, oh, you do commercial real estate. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I've got this business and we're looking to move and do you work in this area? And we started talking and actually have a meeting to go see them at their business this week. Um, so, I think about that situation, which was a recent one where it's like, I could have just walked out the door. I could have gone on my way, worked on my other stuff, get plenty of other stuff to work on. But just by sticking around, putting myself in that, uncomfortable situation, could lead to another, lead working with something else, another opportunity. So, um, I think the more you do those things, the more that you think, then the next time it'll probably be like, okay, I'm gonna stick around. I didn't talk to this person yet, and not every time it's going to be one of those things where someone, it's like, oh yeah, I need commercial real estate because as you know, not everyone needs it all the time, but you never know what you're missing out on by not putting yourself in those situations.
Totally. Yeah. And some of the best opportunities, at least this is what I've seen, have been, things where, maybe it came from a cold call. I wasn't expecting, but like, the highest commissions that I've earned have been, being uncomfortable making a cold call to someone, and, it led to an opportunity, led to a listing, led to next steps. Or, like you said, you're at a networking event, you meet someone, kind of putting yourself out there. Who knows? Even with this podcast, maybe someone, will be listening and have a need for something in the future, maybe that we can try and help. And, by having this podcast, it could lead to opportunities down the road. So you just never know.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's been great to see you get out of your comfort zone and to be open. to some of the things that I brought in, and I think vice versa with me being open to the stuff that you've introduced me to. So I feel in that way, we complement each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And then and push each other, out of those comfort zones as well to go a little further, which, I'm already seeing it's helping me grow professionally and personally. I think you as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Even on the personal side, I'll mention having a pet. That was something that you encouraged me to consider. And
yeah,
I've had a fear of dogs for a long time. I'll just put it out there. And
yeah,
now have a puppy, and it's been awesome. So life changing, in terms of our overall family environment. So
yeah.
I appreciate you, you know, encouraging that. So
Good, good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. That's awesome. Um, I think on the same subject as well, um, not to take it personally in the, rejection side, because I know at times, with you putting yourself out there, making cold calls, all this stuff, it can be hard. And I think the fear that, that I had, and I think probably most people have with putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations is the rejection.
mhm.
Uh, and whether it be, meeting people in person at a networking event, and, maybe you ask them a bunch of questions and they don't ask you any questions. And it's like, you know, and or, maybe you're like, oh, I want to go meet up for coffee sometime, and you never hear back from them, you know. And and also with the cold calling is a big rejection part as well. You're calling up people, they don't know who you are. You're trying to talk to them about whether a need, if we have a property for sale, for lease, something like that, that might be an opportunity for them. But, for the most part, they're going to say no. Um, so, I want to ask you, how do you deal with those parts of being uncomfortable in those situations? And
Yeah. I've tried to reframe things as best I can. So when I make a cold call, at the beginning it was more nervous, being nervous about things and trying, like you said, it might take it personal, but now I try and look at it as like, instead of being nervous, like more excited, like this is cool. Like I have, and for cold calling now, I'm not doing it as often, but it's more very specific. There's a specific reason why I'm calling someone. I have something of value that I'm offering, but excited to see, what the potential could be. Um, I think you had mentioned in an earlier podcast about with networking and kind of reframing that to, when you're at this event, everyone is there to network. It's not like, you're the only person that wants to network. It's a networking event. So maybe it's a little trick here and there or whatever, but like trying to change the perspective of, from nervousness to excitement, from, you know, um, being even just looking at, what you've done in the past. If you've been able to help a lot of business owners or investors with properties, to be able to tell yourself, I could do this. And even if I'm uncomfortable with it, I have the experience and people do want to hear what I have to say. So, it may not be everybody, but, you find the right person at the right time and things can happen.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've gone from being nervous going to these networking events to looking forward to them, getting excited when I go, being disappointed when I have to cancel because something else came up. There was one last week I really wanted to go to, but I was in the middle of showings and I just couldn't make it. And I was bummed. I was bummed that I couldn't get to this network event where, you know, 2 years ago I might have been like, oh, phew, I got these showings, so now I have an excuse that I don't have to go to this,
Right.
and completely changing my mindset on that. Maybe someday I'll get to that with cold calling, but it's definitely gotten better. But that's something that I'm still uncomfortable with, that trying to get to the place where you are with it.
Yeah. Just keep at it. That's it. But, and the more, I even think about this for like transactions, right? If you just have like one, it's not exactly about being uncomfortable, but like, if you have like one transaction that you're working on and you really hope that that's going to go through, and, you know, but, if you have a whole bunch of things going on, maybe you get a little bit more comfortable when you're taking on, another call or another assignment or whatever it is, because you just have that confidence of, okay, it's fine. It's going to be fine. I have all this other stuff going on, and kind of putting yourself out there, kind of building up momentum as time goes on. So I
Yeah.
think that momentum helps for me, it helps me feel more comfortable in general.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with, being able to celebrate those
Yeah,
times where it does work out, even just meeting someone and getting to that next meeting, or having something where, I made 50 cold calls and one of them turned into a $3 million deal, something like that. And to keep track of those and kind of remember, like I'm saying with, the time recently with the networking event, or where it did work out by putting yourself into an uncomfortable situation, and thinking back to those will only help build your confidence as you move forward.
totally. So, how should we celebrate the 10th podcast?
The 10th podcast, yeah. That's a great question. Maybe we can get some ideas from the listeners and the viewers.
I like that. That's
How
good.
should we celebrate the 10th podcast with Josh being comfortable on being uncomfortable? Kind of definitely fitting with our 10th episode here. Um, but yeah, no, anything else you want to add to being uncomfortable?
No, I think it kind of covers in general what we're talking
I,
about. What
I
about you?
won't
Anything
I
else?
won't make you play guitar on here. That'll
No, I'm not going to play guitar. That
probably
would
make you
that
more
would be very
uncomfortable.
uncomfortable playing guitar. But maybe in another podcast
Maybe in
episode, if
a
we
future
hear.
episode, we'll get there. But no, this was great. And as always, if anyone has any questions, any comments, or anything you want us to talk about further on this topic, whether in the podcast or just something you want us to get back to you on, feel free to reach us at podcast@jmj-cre.com. Leave a question, comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to be with us here. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Josh. And we'll see you guys in episode 11.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on the JMJ Commercial Realty podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of JMJ Commercial Realty or its affiliates. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, legal, or real estate advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals regarding their specific real estate or business needs. JMJ Commercial Realty makes no representations or warranties as to the accuracy, completeness, or suitability of any information discussed. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is done solely at your own risk. By listening, you agree that JMJ Commercial Realty and its representatives shall not be held liable for any losses or damages resulting from the use of information shared.